So let's move on to dried spices. Okay. Dried spices are the staple of any cabinet, of any spice cabinet. Now, you might have a spice cabinet that's only got 3 things in it. You might have a spice cabinet like mine. I've got more than 40. More than 40, that ain't nothing. Really, 40 is about maybe a quarter to like even less of what is really available out there. The things that I could talk about that I haven't seen in ages since I moved here, simply because there's no demand for it, so there's no need to bring it in. Anyway, the first one we're going to talk about is cinnamon. Cinnamon, everybody knows cinnamon. Cinnamon in baked goods and desserts. I mean, it's, you know, that's a well-known thing. And interestingly enough, true cinnamon is not typically what we get now. And again, I apologize, I don't have what to show you. Cinnamon is a strip of bark that's been stripped off of a tree, usually the cassia tree. And in Thailand, it's just cassia. Not Thailand, Vietnam. It's just cassia. It's not even. But that what we call cinnamon is actually probably cassia, and we get it from Asia. So it's this little kind of rolled up tube about yay big. It's cinnamon colored. Cinnamon is its own color, oddly enough. Let's see. There you go. So I can't smell it, but too bad. So cinnamon is it's got like a nutty kind of, well, it's cinnamon. It's let me put it this way: if you don't know cinnamon, private message me and I will hook you up with some. Okay. Very popular in Moroccan cuisine. Interestingly enough, it is a very pronounced flavor component in Moroccan cuisine, which is heavily influenced by French cuisine, because Morocco, that whole North Africa thing, they were the French were in control of it for a long time. The French don't really like cinnamon so much. I know it's a generalization. I'm sure I'm gonna have at least one person saying, "No, I'm French. I like cinnamon." Okay, fine, great. You're French and you like cinnamon. Typically, they don't like. It's not like a thing for them. And desserts still allow it, but I've yet to see cinnamon featured prominently on a French menu. Okay, so it's a sweet flavor. It's a sharp flavor. Okay, if you've seen this ridiculous thing about eating a teaspoon of cinnamon, don't do it. It's just, what you're going to do is you're going to burn your throat. Okay, it's got very volatile oils in it. It's going to be sharp and it's going to be unpleasant. It'll put you off the flavor of cinnamon, and that would be a shame, because cinnamon's nice. Cinnamon buns. Who doesn't like cinnamon buns, right? Okay, so cinnamon. So I'm going through a bunch of the spices, what I would categorize or label as the sweet spices. So cinnamon and the next few, they're all used in combination with the more sweeter end of the spectrum, as it were. So the next one I want to show you is nutmeg. Okay, this is a nutmeg. Okay, it's out of focus because I'm in focus. Can I get that? I don't know. Okay. Why isn't it ground up? Because it loses its flavor very quickly. Chances are, in 2 months, if you've bought ground nutmeg, 2 months after you bought it, chances are it's just sawdust. Okay, and you're going to hear me say sawdust a lot soon. Okay, so what do I do with this? You can't really do anything with that. What I do is, when I'm making a squash kugel, or I'm using it in a soup or something like that, I will use what's known as a microplane. Okay, and that's going to be impossible to see. What you can see is there's a bunch of tiny little raised, like razor blade edge things. What I'll do is I'll take the nutmeg and scrape it, about 5 or 6 scrapes. The fresh nutmeg or freshly ground nutmeg, sorry, let's be specific, will fall into whatever it is that I'm making, and it will add a very intense flavor. So don't use a lot of it. Okay. All right. there is another component. What's interesting is that I'm going to call it the arrow, and if I'm wrong, correct me. Okay, that the nutmeg grows in a tree, and it actually has this red casing, tendril casing arrow, known as mace, and it's much more subtle than actual nutmeg. It is the secret flavor component for hot dogs. How you like that? Okay, I know I just got a couple people angry at me, but too bad. If you're making your own hot dogs, make sure you get some mace, grind it up. That's the flavor that you're missing. Okay, so nutmeg very popular in pies and in baking, and I like it with squashes, so butternut and pumpkin, stuff like that. Pumpkin pie spice, which I don't think I'm gonna mention again, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so nutmeg is one of the flavor components of pumpkin pie spice. Okay, next on the sweet end of the herbs, spices, is allspice, also known as English pepper. I don't know where else it's called English pepper. I have always known it as allspice. This is one of those spices that everybody went crazy for when they discovered it. Okay, it's very big. It's got a very assertive flavor. Now, I use that much of it regularly. Why? Because I make corned beef, and this is an important component of pickling spice. Okay, so allspice is very well known in Caribbean cuisine, especially Jamaican. It's actually a berry. Of the plant, it is botanically known a berry for whatever reason. Okay, it's got a sweet and woody flavor, and you'll know it's missing if a recipe is supposed to have it and it doesn't. It tends to have a sharp flavor, which mellows with cooking. If you're looking for a flavor combo that you were in the Caribbean and you smelled something, you ate something, whatever it is, thyme and allspice and are going to be those two flavors that were in combination, and probably some sort of hot pepper. Cardamom is the third most expensive herb and spice, herb or spice that is available on the market. So there's cardamom there, which is much cheaper by far than vanilla, which unfortunately I don't have any to show you. And currently, at the time that this video is recorded, there's actually a there's a vanilla crisis on the planet, but there's nothing we can do about it. We'll just have to deal with the prices the way they are. Of course, the most expensive is saffron. We'll get to her. Yes, she's a her. Yes, our firefly. Okay. Cardamom, there are two general types of cardamom. This is the green cardamom, and again, the lighting is horrible, but I apologize. These are cardamom pods. Let me just take one and open it up for you. I like to keep them fresh in their pods and then just grind them up when I need them. What you get when you open up the pod is you get this little cluster of seeds. Okay, and that's the actual cardamom seed that gives it the flavor. The husk is just a husk, but again, this is amazing flavor. I love this flavor. Okay. So there are green pods and there are black pods. These are green pods, obviously they're green. The seeds in are black, just to add to the confusion. Okay. It's very aromatic. It comes off of whatever it is that you're cooking in. So it's essentially an Indian cooking, and bizarrely enough, it is a flavor component in Scandinavian baking. It is, there you go. And Middle Eastern. So in Arabian culture, what you'll do is you can flavor coffee with cardamom pods. Actually, I've had it. I kind of like it. It's not like a go-to everyday thing, but if I'm looking for something interesting and sweet, but I need to wake up and I don't want to have tea, then I'll drop a cardamom pod in my coffee. Okay. Okay, so moving right along, it looks like I actually managed to get this part into alphabetical order. The next one is cumin. Now, Cumin, I have had very terrible things to say about cumin. Let me show you what cumin looks like. Okay, again, I'm sorry about the, there, that's what cumin looks like in focus. Okay. So cumin is describes as earthy, smoky, warm, and a very, very strong flavor. Okay, right now, everything smells like cumin, which has a disagreeable odor if you're overwhelmed by it. And by disagreeable, I mean body odor. But when used in appropriate amounts, and appropriate is what divides something from being overwhelmed by cumin to something that has subtle earthy notes, it could be as little as, you know, one or two one or two grains of cumin. What I showed you was the whole cumin seed. It gets ground up before use. It gets toasted before use, and let's see, used in marinades. It's a important flavor component of chili powder, and it's found in curry. Okay, now remember our friend. Where are you, friend? Remember our friend cilantro. Okay, so cilantro, when it gets too warm out, what happens is it bolts. Well, that's the name for it. I don't know. It means that it stops growing leaves and starts growing heads. And, oh Lord. And in those heads, these berries grow that I refer to as coriander seed. Interestingly enough, I'm not the first person to notice coriander seed. It is used to describe the manna or mun that the Jews, when they were in the desert, they would go collect the mun or the manna every morning, and it likens it to coriander seeds, which are these white seed pods. Okay, and you saw what they look like. They're not exactly white, but yeah, this is also something I use quite a bit of. Because it's a flavor component that in pastrami and in corned beef. The best way to use coriander is if it's been lightly toasted. If I'm doing a brine, I don't bother with it, but if I'm putting it in a dish, I will typically toast it, and it gives off the more intense flavor. Okay, the next seed we're going to talk about, rich oil, is fennel seed. Okay, fennel is a large bulbous plant, and when fennel grows too big and wants to seed the way things in the plant kingdom do, okay, they will give off these fennel seeds. So I want you to take a look at one fennel seed, and can you see that one fennel seed? See the little tail? That's important. That's fennel seed. Because now what I'm going to show you, you know, it smells like black jelly beans, man. If you like black jelly beans, can't get enough of this. Okay? Another seed that is kind of the same but completely different is anise seed. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's anise seed also. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of something different, okay? Anise seed looks like fennel seed. Okay, it's got the little tail. It's got the, can you see it? It's like falling off my hand. Okay, it's a smaller pod. Anise seed is like a sweeter, like this fennel seed is more herby, and this one's more like desserty. I don't know, like candy-ish is anise seed. So there are subtle differences. Again, I use them primarily in sausage making. Big Italian flavor, fennel seed. Okay. Okay, so that's fennel seed and anise seed. Okay. As long as we're talking about things in the anise department, let me find my, that's not it. Star anise, okay. That's a star anise, actually I'm missing the one on there, but I don't care, okay. Star anise is a pod from an Asian evergreen tree. So this flavor comes from everywhere and goes everywhere. Okay, it has a very strong flavor. What I would probably call one of my signature soups, even though I hate the term signature, not soup, is tomato superstar anise. I think that the subtlety of it, yes, it's a licorice flavor. Yes, I like licorice flavor. Maybe you don't. That's fine. It's very strong. I could use like one of those and drop it into a huge pot of soup, and it'll flavor the whole thing. I'll just lace it. But again, there are people who react badly to it in terms of flavor. So what can you do? I like it. It's also one of the components in a spice blend, which we'll talk about later, called Chinese 5-spice. Okay. All right, ginger. Ginger is best used when it's fresh. That's a statement of opinion, not a fact. But if you don't have ginger if you're using ginger in Asian stir-fry cooking, you're using fresh ginger. If you're using ginger in baking, like gingerbread cookies, okay, you're using this powdered stuff, which is ginger's not a root, it's called a rhizome. It kind of just whatever. A hand of ginger will be grated and then, dried out. And this flavor is used for, like I said, for gingerbread cookies, for ginger's also a part of pumpkin pie spice, if I remember correctly, or I put in pumpkin pie spice. But otherwise, Asian, they tend to like their ginger fresh. I mean, they use dried, but they tend to like it fresh. Okay. Okay. Now, vanilla, I know I don't have to go looking for it. So vanilla is a long, thin black pod, and inside it has thousands of little seeds. It's a very strong flavor. It's native to Central America. It is a relative of marijuana. Cool. Nothing else tastes like vanilla. Vanilla is like nothing else in the world. It is probably the most common flavoring ingredient on the planet, which is why it's so expensive. Hard to grow. Madagascar is known for growing, even though it's indigenous to Central America. It did take well in Madagascar. It isn't until the weather wiped it out. Okay. So that's vanilla. Saffron. We were talking about saffron, and I'm not even sure how I ordered these, but whatever. Okay. This is a bag of saffron. This bag of saffron is about $10. Okay. I've already used a little bit from it. A little bit goes a long way. Trust me on that. Okay. Saffron is the most, by far, expensive spice on the planet. Okay, why? Because it grows from a specific crocus plant. Okay, crocus plant's about that big. Okay, about the size of my hand. It grows that far off the earth, so you can't even grow like a saffron tree or anything. You are literally bending over and growing it. This is a big thing in Iran, Persia. So what you do is you go and you lovingly pick all of these stamens from the crocus plant. If you remember, the pistil is the centerpiece and the stamens are the things around it. So you pick all those, okay? And you collect pounds and pounds of it. And then you put it out over a fire to dry it, okay? Because it needs to dry over a fire. I don't know. That's what they told me to say. And then the fire that they build could actually consume the entire thing in a complete burst. So you have to tend this fire. This is why it's very expensive, because it's very hard to raise. There are other products out there, saffron powder and stuff like that. It's just really is junk. You're not using, first of all, if you're using it every day, then I want to eat at your house. You're not using it every day. You invest in, in decent, some 1 gram or, half a gram or 1 gram, half a gram or 1 gram of saffron. It'll last you for a couple, 3 dishes. It's very popular in Spanish cuisine, paella. That's what turns it yellow is saffron threads. It has what's been described as a pleasantly bitter flavor, and the saffron yellow color is unmistakable. There are other things that are yellow, like turmeric and annatto, but nothing tastes like saffron, period. Bar none. Okay, so So we talked about, okay, we talked about vanilla, cardamom, and saffron. Those are the three expensive. Let's go to paprika. Paprika being one of the cheapest, but that's only if you're cheap, because there are qualities of paprika. Okay, paprika is made from dried red bell peppers, not the ones that you eat in, that you go to the produce section and you eat from. Okay, again, I use that much of it because Eastern European and, hooray us. Okay, so it's made from dried, not hot chile peppers, except that if you make it with hot chile peppers, then it's going to be hot paprika. Okay, paprika is known as, is a major flavoring component of Hungarian cuisine, Eastern European in general. It ranges in coloring from very light paprika, which is generally cheaper, to very dark paprika. There's smoky, there's spicy, there's in oil, there's Moroccan. There's tons of paprika types out there. I only use like the one generic paprika because I'm usually using it with other things, and it's not important to me to be a flavor component. That being said, there are times when I've gotten the hot paprika because my spice guys told me to. So I want to talk about it. Okay. Speaking of yellow, which we were, I don't know why. Turmeric is also a rhizome like ginger. It's not the root. It's kind of like an underground stem. I don't really have a way to explain rhizome. If you want to leave it in the comments, that's fine. Okay. Turmeric is this kind of like light rusty orangey color, and then when it's dried it turns into this yellow powder. It has a flavor. It's not just a color. You use yellow food coloring if you want something yellow. But it does have its own flavor. It's a little bit of a musty flavor, but I happen to think, again, like cumin, if you don't use an overpowering amount of it, it's going to be, it's going to be the flavor that you want, not the flavor that just kind of falls into your dish. Okay. In the weird color category, we have sumac. Sumac is definitely Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, sorry. Okay, and it is this beautiful, and you can't tell on here, purple color. Okay, it has this purple color, it has this lemony citrus flavor. It's really fun. It's a fun way to brighten up a dish in a like, wait, why is that purple kind of way. Sumac it's used to dress flavor. It's used to dress flavors. And there's only one other spice that I know of. Actually, technically, it would probably be an herb. There's only one other herb that I know of that is purple, and that is lavender. And lavender is kind of this really like lavendery, lilac-y color. And yeah, you can smell it. This stuff is old and it still smells great. French uses lavender. The French cuisine uses lavender. French is language. French cuisine uses lavender in meats. Interestingly enough, just thought that would be interesting. It's not very common. I have to sneak it in. Nobody knows that I do it, but they're like, "Oh, this is really good," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know it is." Okay, all right. Jumping around because hey, why not? We were talking about paprika. So paprika is a chili pepper that can be not spicy. Okay, cayenne pepper, on the other hand, is very spicy. Okay, not very spicy, not to me. Is spicy. Okay, it is made from capsaicin plant, specifically the cayenne variety of capsaicin. And what's interesting between this and dried chili pepper flakes and other spicy, like other of the capsaicin type spicy, is that it's not actually, it doesn't have, the spiciness isn't a flavor in and of itself. What the spiciness does is it kind of activates the receptors on your tongue to make them more amenable to more flavors. It actually broadens your taste range, and it's spicy, which is fun. I like spicy. Okay, black pepper. was at one point so important to international trade that it was used as currency. It was weighed out and used as currency. Okay, so black pepper, black ground seed, Piper nigrum, was a key essential ingredient. And this was at one time really the only other thing that, like, people didn't know from half of the things that didn't know from most of the things that I'm showing you, but they did know black pepper. And salt and pepper have this symbiotic relationship. This is why it's always called for to be added, salt and pepper together. Okay. It's used, I use copious amounts of it when I'm making pastrami, when I'm making soup, when I'm making corned beef, when I'm making sausages. I'm always using black pepper. Black pepper, I do have it in whole form. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to reiterate. If you have spices in whole form, they're going to last longer. Okay, so spices in whole form can last a couple of years, which was good because they didn't have overnight shipping, like I mentioned. You know, these things would be on boats for months and exposed to seawater and the ravages of disease and war and whatever. So keep them whole, and they will last long. You grind them up, and pretty soon all you're doing is just adding sawdust to your food. So, okay, so as far as pepper goes, there are 4 different varietals. No, there's two. Okay, let me start again. There's 2 different types of pepper. One is actually 3 peppers, and the second one is not pepper at all. Let me begin. Green pepper. The green peppercorns are the fresh black pepper. Okay, it's black pepper that hasn't been turned black. Okay. Okay. Black pepper is black pepper, and white pepper is black pepper, but the outsides have been removed. Okay, so now you know all the difference between the 3 black pepper. Oh yes, that's right, I mentioned the 4th one. There's red peppercorns. Okay, it's just some empty berry. It just looks pretty, and they're the same size as black pepper. Don't spend extra money on it. If somebody gives you a gift of it, don't be rude. It's pretty. Okay. Now there are some herbs and spices that are they're not the real thing. They're spices. They're not the real thing. If you use them, fine. It's not a judgment thing. If you have access to, let me just start with garlic powder. Okay, this is how much garlic powder we use in the house in like 2 months. It's crazy. Okay, it's garlic that's been chopped up, dried out, and ground out into a powder. Okay, garlic is it's a vegetable. I don't like, what would you call garlic? It's kind of like a vegetable thing. It's not really an herb. It's not really a spice. It's kind of like the bulbs of, I don't know, whatever. Garlic powder. Get yourself fresh garlic. Use your microplane to get it really small, or use a mortar and pestle to grind up garlic fresh, or in a pinch, use the crushed garlic that they sell in the freezer section, but I don't really like that. Also, one of the coolest hacks that I have in the kitchen is you take a garlic, you separate it, put it in a closed container, shake it vigorously, and the husks will start to come off. Or the paper, rather, will start to come off. Okay, so that's garlic powder. I use garlic powder for roasts. I use garlic powder. I try not to use it in soups and stews, in wet things and fresh things. Really more in dry stuff, or spice rubs and stuff like that. Okay, onion powder, much the same muchness. It's onion that's been ground up, dried up, ground up into a powder. I'm not really a fan of onion powder. I think it's too sweet. I think that I'm just going to cut an onion if I want onion, if I need onion flavor. That being said, it is an important and essential component on top of our challah spices. Okay. Okay. Spice blends are when somebody takes a whole bunch of things, puts them together, finds it as a really good idea, and then kind of spreads the word. And there are spice blends that there are spice blends that have worked through the ages. They are like pumpkin pie spice, like Chinese 5 spice. Okay, here's one called hawij. It's a Middle Eastern Levantine flavoring component, especially for stews and stuff like that. Okay, so that's a spice blend. Here's a well-known one in the States. Old Bay seasoning. I have no idea. It looks backwards to me. Old Bay seasoning is it's a spice blend. Somebody put a spice blend together, said, wow, this is really good. Somebody said, okay, put it in a can and sell it. And guess what? They put it in a can and they sold it. Okay, it's pretty good. What does it have in it? Celery salt, spices, including red pepper and black pepper, and paprika. Okay, this doesn't tell you what it's in. That's good, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I know if I'm getting a can of Old Bay, I'm gonna have a particular flavor profile that I like, okay? And that's the important thing in spice blends, is that it's about what you like and not what somebody is telling you. And the reason I'm going to tell you this is because I'm actually finishing up. Is because when you go to a store and you buy a bottle of curry powder, that's not really a thing. That's what whoever is in charge of that spice brand decided you should have curry flavor taste like. Well, which is it? Is it Indian curry? Is it Jamaican curry? There's two different types of curry powder. And in fact, there is no real Indian curry powder, because what Indian cooks will do is they will have like a palette of spices, and they will, by eye, by feel, by preternatural sense, add exactly in which spices and what they want, how they want it, to get the ideal flavor. So there is no one Indian curry spice blend. It's ridiculous. There's many Indian curry spice blends as there are homes in India. Okay, and every Indian mother or father, cook, whoever's cooking in India will have that different flavor. Now, that being said, in Jamaica, there's actually a leaf called a curry leaf. I don't know, and there's one in India also. I don't want to talk about it. Okay. So spice blends are about what are important to you. More importantly is that spice blends that you buy from a can will have as their primary ingredient, primary meaning first and most important, they will have salt. Okay, it will be up to a quarter of the entire volume of what it is that you're buying will be salted. And this is important to know, is that salt, didn't even talk about salt. Salt's a rock, okay? Salt comes from the ocean. Salt is a flavoring enhancer. It's not a spice. It's not an herb. It's also ubiquitous. Salt has been known throughout the recorded history. It is cheap. It is plentiful. It's whatever, okay? But somebody who's buying spices and buys this spices, X dollars per pound, and this spice is Y dollars per pound, stuff like that. They're mixing it together. Now, if they add salt, what they're doing is they're enhancing the flavor. They're lowering their bottom line because salt is cheap, and they can get away with it, which I don't like. So I much prefer, and I have recipes that I will post if I don't already have them posted of spice blends that are more or less commonly used. One of them I want to talk about. Okay, talk about curry. Okay, I want to talk about this one. See, okay, so as far as curry goes, so I make my own curry, make it in a big batch, and I wrap it up, and it lasts me for a while. Okay. This one I want to talk about is Ras Al Hanout. Okay, Ras Al Hanout has no parent recipe. It literally in Hebrew, Rosh HaChanut means the head of the store, the top of the shop, which is, I don't know, I just think it's funny. So Ras Al Hanout is a spice blend that spice merchants would make their own blends, and it's a secret blend, blah, 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 and that's how they would draw people into their shop, is that they would use Ras Al Hanout as their house blend. Okay, I heartily recommend that you make your own, or at the very worst, buy 100 grams, and I'll get to that in a second. A little bit is for the US people. You buy a little bit of Ras Al Hanout, try it, and you're going to find yourself buying more and more, and it goes in different things, and people don't understand why your food all of a sudden got so much tremendously better. Okay, so that's Ras Al Hanout and curry. Okay. Let's talk about other spice blends. There you go. Here's za'atar. Za'atar used to be wild hyssop. Okay. And now it's a blend of oregano and, as you can see, sesame seeds, and there's salt in there also. And I don't know, I can't smell anything anyway because I've got spices up my nose for over an hour. So za'atar is now a spice blend. It used to be wild hyssop, now it's a spice blend. It is it's wild oregano, thyme, sumac, salt, sesame seeds. It is quintessentially Israeli. When people say, what can I bring for people? I say, get 50 gram, which is like, I don't know, a few ounces. It's 2-ounce bags of za'atar and bring it home. And you can take it, you can smear it, mix it with oil and smear it on bread. And it really, it's amazing. It's really a very Israeli flavor. And I know people are going to say, oh, but the Arabs, you know what, I'm not getting into it. I'm saying that if you want to have the flavor of Israel, za'atar is the starting point. Okay. Another important spice blend is beriberi. It is an Ethiopian spice mixture, heavy on the paprika, heavy on the moderately on the cinnamon, and not so moderately on the spicy. I happen to love beriberi. I could you mix it with eggs, and that's just, you'll be like, oh my god, why have I not been eating this my whole life? Okay. So I mentioned briefly Chinese five spice. I didn't have any. Yeah, I have Chinese five spice. Okay. Oddly enough, I don't like it. It's just me. It's a blend of, I can't remember. Here, it's right in front of me. Star anise, Szechuan peppercorns. Oh, I have those. I forgot to take them out. Cassia or cinnamon, fennel seeds, and cloves. And that's the Chinese five spice in equal amounts. You blend it up and you get a flavor that I'm not really keen on. Okay. Garam masala. Garam masala is an Indian spice blend. More typically, it is an actual spice blend from India, not curry powder. Let's see, it's cumin, coriander seeds, cardamom, black peppercorns, cloves, mace, bay leaf, and cinnamon. That's just like one typical recipe for garam masala. Again, you can take these things and you can say, like, I don't want to use black peppercorns, I want to use white pepper. I want to use green peppercorns. I don't know, I'm rich and green peppercorns are very expensive, by the way. So hey, fine, use white peppercorns instead of black peppercorns. You want to use coriander seed, you want to use dried up coriander leaf, that's fine. I don't like it, but if that's your thing, if that's how you want your garam masala to float, go for it. Okay. Chili powder. Again, these are not, I'm not giving you recipes for these things. I'm telling you what the major components are that when combined, you would recognize to your palate as this is what this is supposed to be. So chili powder has in it cayenne pepper or chili powder, the powdered chile, garlic, onion, cumin, oregano, allspice, and salt. That's what makes up chili powder. So you have the cumin provides the smokiness. If you want to use something, you want to burn something and use that as a smokiness, you can do that too. It's up to you. Okay. Here are 4 that come from French cuisine. And herbs de Provence is herbs from the Provence section of France, which is south of France. Thyme, rosemary, savory, fennel seeds, and lavender. Ta-da! It's like all these very assertive flavors that I actually make it with a veal roast. It's like make a wet rub with the herbs of Provence, and it is absolutely out of this world. I guarantee it. I know people who will back me up. Okay. Fennel is fine herbs, fresh parsley, chives, tarragon, and chervil. It's a very delicate flavor. You add that right at the end to just give it a little bit of a gardeny flavor, I think would be the best way to. Okay, bouquet garni. So this is standard in French cuisine. When you're making a stock, you take celery and you take onions and you take carrots and you put them in butter or oil or whatever and you sweat them, and that's your mirepoix. And then you take a bouquet garni, which is a stalk of celery and parsley and thyme and bay leaf and leek, and then you tie it together and you put it in the stock and you tie it to the handle so you can fetch it out later, and that's a bouquet garni. And I don't use bouquet garni because I know what a strainer is. Okay, and then there's a sachet d'épices, which is a packet of spices, which is parsley, thyme, bay leaf, and peppercorns. And you put them in a little soup bag, and that gives it a very French flavor. Okay, if that's a thing. Okay. And then just to finish up, I'd mentioned, actually, almost finished, Jamaican jerk seasoning is chilies and thyme and cinnamon, ginger, allspice, cloves, garlic, and onions or onion powder. Okay, so these combinations of spices that exist, and there's another one here. This is McCormick's taco seasoning. I don't know if it's backwards, okay? And it has in it yellow cornmeal, okay, and spices including chili, pepper, cumin, oregano, sea salt, whatever. This is what McCormick wants your tacos to taste like. You get my point? Is that, this is not like, there's no official recipe for taco seasoning that the government of Mexico puts out and enforces, okay? That's just stupid, because Mexico's got its own regions and everything's gonna taste different anyway, and some of them don't even have tacos, so there you go. But that's what a spice blend is. I have this one. This is a very popular one. My friend Alex, this is kebab seasoning. This is what the guy who put the seasoning in the jar wanted your kebabs to taste like. And it's a good starting point. And it's like, okay, so I like this one. I'll keep using it. Fine, no problem with that. I didn't like this one. I'm going to make my own. Okay, so, to figure out what spices you like blended. Listen, Paul Prudhomme, his thing was mixing like 20 different herbs and spices together. And he got a really good flavor thing going on. It's complex. And if your if your palate can pick up 20 different herbs and spices and think, great, that's wonderful. You have a very advanced palate, and I'm proud of you. People, 5 seems to be the magic number. There's one spice blend that I didn't talk about called Panch Paron, which is Bengali. It's 5 spices and it's 5 spices in combination. Chinese 5 spices, sachet d'epices. All those had like combinations that were mostly of 5. That seems to work. Sweet, salt, sour, bitter, and umami. Sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. Right, savory. Okay, so yeah, 5. No shock there. Okay, some things that I didn't talk about. I'm just gonna finish out the video. This is yellow mustard seed. I use a lot of it because I do a lot of corned beef and stuff. Okay. This is caraway seed, also known as kimmel. Okay, it looks a lot like cumin, tastes nothing like it. Okay, I associate caraway seed, interestingly enough, with German and that area of Europe, the flavor and seasonings. But it is also the primary flavor in harissa, which was a shock to me when I started researching harissa. It's it's hot peppers and caraway seeds and oil and salt. I was like, wow, how did that migrate? It was interesting. Never actually discovered it recently. Okay, if you do Havdalah, which is the service at the end of the Sabbath, splitting the Sabbath and the week, you're probably familiar with cloves. Cloves are kind of like thorns. They're like unripe flower buds that are, I don't know, whatever. I honestly don't remember. But like one of them can flavor like 8 metric tons of soup. So you just got to be careful with that. I'm overstating, but not really. Okay, dill, one of those, we can do more than one thing with it. This is dill seed, okay? And it gives you a dilly flavor, but a very muted dill flavor. And I can go take this and I can go sprinkle it out in the garden, and then all of a sudden I've got dill growing. That's kind of cool. And it works for coriander also, guess what? Okay, what else we got? This is, these are juniper berries. See how shiny they are? They're shiny, and big. They're shiny, not like allspice, which isn't. They're big, not like black pepper, which isn't. And they are the primary flavor component of gin. And they're very hard to find around here. So I have a lot of it. I keep them in a glass jar because it keeps longer. Okay, you've seen a lot of different jars. I like having jars that I can recognize what would be in them when I go for them, when I go into my spice cabinet. So I have different size jars, and I repurpose jars because I hate throwing out plastic like that, and it's useful and whatever. But when I don't have it, I don't have it, or if I'm in a buying kind of mood, I will buy specific spice jars for my spice guy. They're 3 for $12, probably 3 for $15 now, who knows? It's been a while since I bought them. Okay, going back to yellow mustard, there's another one, and it is black mustard, okay? This is the mustard that Golden's and all the rest of the good mustards have made their reputations on, okay? Good. Okay, this is fun. This is celery seed. Now, I could go and plant these also, and you can barely tell that it's already looks like dust. These are really small seeds. They're mixed with salt. People do things with them. It's very weird. Celery salt is like a flavor enhancer. It's almost like adding MSG to something. It's not MSG. I'm not getting into the MSG debate right now. I shouldn't have even said the word MSG because it's an acronym. But celery seed is one of those things where you kind of add a dash of it, and it's like, wow, that just like perked up everything and made it good, and that's the way it works. Okay, what else did I not show you? Let's see. Okay, I showed you mortar and pestle. I remember seeing that on my screen. So that spice grinder. It's a coffee grinder. Like buy a coffee grinder for 80 shekel, 10, 12 bucks, and that's a quick way to zip up your spices, make big spices into little spices. Which is usually how you want to eat them because whole peppercorns in food kind of gets a little irritating. Okay. That is all I have for my herbs and spice classes. I regret that you cannot smell what I'm smelling right now, which is basically, I'm smelling a spice shop in Machane Yehuda right now in the open air market in Jerusalem. Which is fantastic to me, and considering that recording this in the early months of 2020, if you remember the quarantine, when you're watching this video years from now, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. Couldn't get out, couldn't get to these places. So having these spices, having the world come to me in waves of pleasurable odor is the meaning and the purpose of spices. It gives you a good feeling that you smell these things, that you can be like, and they probably will trigger subconscious memories of good food that you've had. I encourage you to ask me questions about spices and how to use them, and I will set you on the path to recipes rather than command you that this is what you must have in your curry, in your Ras Al Hanout, in your whatever, your spice blend, whatever, because it's not about if I'm enjoying it, whether or not I'm at your table. It is whether or not you're enjoying, whether the flavors that you are giving to your food are enhancing your finished product. That's all I've got, and thank you for staying with me.